Trading foreign exchange on margin carries a high level of risk and may not be suitable for all investors. The high degree of leverage can work against you. And before deciding to invest in foreign exchange, you should carefully consider your investment objectives, level of experience, and risk appetite. The possibility exists that you could sustain a loss of some or all of your initial investment, and therefore you should not invest money that you cannot afford to lose. You should be aware of all the risks associated with foreign exchange trading and seek advice from an independent financial advisor if you have any doubts. Welcome. It is Sunday, September 4th, 2011, and you're a Boscillator person, and I'm a Boscillator person, and we're all here together talking about the Boscillator. It's nice to see each and every one of you here. Welcome to the webinar. If you're joining us on the recording, we have no hard feelings about the fact that you left us here waiting for you and you ditched us, and we expected you to be here, but it's totally fine. Don't worry. It happens to us all the time. Here are some announcements that I'd like to share with you before we begin. Number one, every normal day this week, which is to mean Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, at 9 a.m. to 9:15 Pacific time, I will conduct a Boscillator watch list webinar. If you move to the home page of the Boscillator website, click on Boscillator webinar registrations, and click on Daily Boscillator Webinars, week of September 4th, you will see a link to register for these morning watch list webinars. What I realized is some of you would very much enjoy a little bit more personal attention as you plan Boscillator trades, and you would like to know what kind of Boscillator trades Scott and I would be interested in taking. That morning webinar that lasts for 15 minutes will scan through current charts in the financial markets, including stocks and currencies, and discuss upcoming trades that have not yet completed that you might consider taking if you want to be awesome. Scott will participate in those webinars because he is the giant, most extraordinary Boscillator trader of all time and forever in a most fantastical way. If you think those webinars are a good idea, let me know. Let me know now in the chat box. You can see a picture of the chat box on my screen in front of you that I am sharing on the Piptoring homepage. And what I'd like to do by doing those webinars is make sure that you feel like I'm participating, that you know where I am, and you know what I'm thinking about the kinds of trades that I have taught you. That's number one on the announcements. I'm so excited about it, I can hardly stand it. Number two on the announcements. The trend trading lessons are complete. Let me send all of you inside of the webinar software a link to this document. You can actually see the document that I'm reading right now on the web. The trend trading lessons are complete. I am happier with the trend trading lessons than with any lessons I ever produced on any subject ever. I finished those up yesterday, and it took a while to complete those lessons. For that, I apologize. But I'm very happy with the trend trading lessons. I strongly encourage you to read through those trend trading lessons within the next 72 hours. The counter trend trading lessons are complete as well. There are links to both of those sets of lessons right inside this webinar agenda document. The more I look at the Boscillator, the more time I spend with it, the more I like the trend trading version of the Boscillator. Scott will be talking a huge amount about the counter trend trading, and I'll be talking a lot about the trend trading. That way you have two different perspectives on financial instruments, and we'll talk more about how you complete a trading plan using those two styles of trading. We'll talk about that today. In fact, that's why we're here together. Number 4, Rob will be on the home page for chat every morning, Monday through Wednesday of this week. If you want personal attention or you want some advice on what you're doing or you have a question, you can ask it right here inside of this chat box on the home page of the Piptoring Forum. I don't know how long this chat box will be available on the home page, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. But it will be available during the week this week, and I hope to see you here. So if you need something, I'm available. For those of you that live in Asia, Asia includes awesome countries such as Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, and Australia. If you live in any of those places and are a Boss Later trader and you're wondering why in the world I would do a webinar at 9 o'clock in the morning for me and leave you out completely, here's my answer. The following week, the week of September 11th, I will do the watch list webinars in the morning for Asia instead of the morning for America. That way, those of you that live in Asia will feel like I'm also helping you out. I hope that works for you. That way we'll give some attention to the people that live in other parts of the world. Every one of those watch list webinars will be recorded, and the recordings will be fantastical productions, not eligible for Emmys or Academy Awards, but they would win if they were nominated. Number 5, I will be in Las Vegas for the FXCM Expo next weeky. Next weekend is an expo of giant awesomeness and fantastical proportions. Here it is, the FXCM Expo, missing its homepage image for who knows what reason. I know many of you cannot attend because you live in all kinds of other places in the world. But if you can attend, it's definitely worth it, and I would love to meet you in person. That's all I have to say about that subject. Number 6, do you like the chat box on the home page? Do you not like the chat box on the home page? Is it a distraction? Do you not understand how to use it? Does it not work as advertised? Does it crash? I would like to hear your feedback. I'd like to hear anything that you have to say about that. Redline Fred, Manfred Breckenrecker, wants to know if it will be recorded. Everything that I do will be recorded. In Las Vegas, not everything that I do will be recorded, but we are going to try, Manfred. Manfred, we will try to record everything. My friend is coming with a video camera, and if they allow it, I will record every word I say to the public, Manfred, and make that available to you. Is that a deal? We're going to give it a shot, but I cannot promise it because sometimes they ask us not to record. Glad to hear you like the chat box. I like it too. Jennifer, I like it that it's right there on the home page and people can just like interact right away, and if they, want to interact or whatever. I don't so much care for the Who's Online button at the bottom of the screen. I don't much care for that, and let me tell you why. Because nobody uses it. Because it's one-on-one chatting with people that you haven't met before. And I don't as much care for that. And when you look at the website on an iPad, this chat thing, the line from it scrolls up through the entire website and kind of ruins your browsing experience because it's right in the middle.
I know you hate that.
I like a clean browsing experience. I like to know my browsing is clean. So we'll probably get rid of this Who's Online chatting business. We're probably going to dump that today. If you have any objections to that, you can send those objections to Boris Schlossberg of GFT, and he can handle that request, because I don't care. Great, we're going to get rid of that Who's Online chat box at the bottom of the page. That's it for announcements. Let's move on to the next section of today's webinar, and that next section of the webinar is called Basic Questions. Number 1, why are the lessons numbered in a strange way? 4.1, 4.2, and so forth. Take a look at the step-by-step lessons. If you go to the section that says Boscillator Lessons, learn the Boscillator here, and then you click on, let's just say 4.0, Trend Trading the Boscillator, here's what you see. 4.01, what the crap is that? 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, 4.5, 4.6, 4.7, and then we skip 4.8 and move right to 4.9. What is going on with this numerical confusion? Here's the answer. When I set up the forum software, I needed to number these lessons in order. This was very easy to do using the Moodle course software, but using the Moodle course software required us to use two separate logins that made everything very confusing. When I used the forum software, I ran into two problems. Number one, how to order things in a way that made them visible so that you could follow the course step by step, but then leave space in between for lessons that I would want to shove in there later on. In order to do that, I needed to leave some spaces in between the numerical progression, and I also needed to lock these topics so that individuals would not be able to add a question or a topic in the middle here and then disrupt the flow. In other words, I needed to make sure that between 4.1 trend trade number 1 and 4.2 trend trade number 2, we didn't have a post that said something like, my MetaTrader charts are not working. And that would interrupt the flow of just following the course. That's why you see also at the end of every lesson a link that says to ask questions about this lesson, go here. The reason you see the link right there instead of a reply button on your version is so that we don't interrupt the flow of the lessons and so that we don't get an interruption in the course step by step. I've left gaps in the numbers, in other words, to allow me to add additional lessons in between sections without adding crazy numbers like 4.314 pi or whatever. I apologize to those of you who find that numerical progression confusing, and I appreciate those of you who paid attention in elementary school on the counting sections, because this has not been a difficult experience for you. Let's see if any questions came through. None. I love it. What do the numbers on the Boscillator mean? I've received many questions about this from those of you who love to ask questions. Who doesn't love to ask questions? Here's the answer. On your Boscillator charts on MetaTrader, in the upper right-hand section of the screen, you will see a series of data. First, you see the word radar screen, the words radar screen. That's just the title. Number 2, you see the number negative 126 pips. What does this refer to? This refers to the number of pips below the 800 period simple moving average that the euro dollar is right now. Right now, the euro dollar is 126 pips below the 800. You know what this does for you? This tells you if you used the 800 period simple moving average as your profit target right now, that's how much pippage would be available. It's a very nice, helpful observation to give you an idea of what your profit target could be if you traded right now to the 800 period simple moving average. The next number refers to the number of bars since we were last at the 800 period simple moving average. Also next to it, it refers to the number of days. It translates that into hours or days. If we move to the 1 minute chart, it gives you the reading in terms of hours. Standard deviation, average, those two numbers, these two numbers right here, will be useful to us in the future, but they are irrelevant right now. They mean nothing to us. They are irrelevant, but they are listed here because they will become important as we are able to load more data onto MetaTrader. Right now, those numbers, however, are not important. A crow, it's okay, Jennifer. A crow outside wanted to participate in the webinar today. Standard deviation and average mean nothing. You don't have to worry about it. The last number is one of my favorite numbers produced by the Bosslator. What the Bosslator does is look at all time frame charts simultaneously through some kind of spiritual out-of-body experience, and it comes back onto your chart and it says to you, here's the chart that is most fully, ridiculously extended for this financial instrument that you're looking at right now. I like that feature because if you're looking at the euro dollar and there's a chart time frame for the euro dollar that is more fully extended, this number will let you know. For example, if we move over to the 15-minute chart on the euro dollar, it tells us how many bars we've been away from the 800 period simple moving average, 199, on this 15-minute chart. But it shows you down at the bottom that we've been away longer on the 5-minute. That's fantastical. It's marvelous. It's beautiful. If you're looking at the Bosslator on a different charting platform, say for instance Forex Tester or maybe TradeStation, you'll have a line at the bottom of your screen that creeps upward the longer that the financial instrument is away from the 800 period simple moving average. That line refers to the number of bars or candles since we last hit the 800. In this case, on the Euro-Canadian 5-minute chart, we have a Bosslator reading of 436. And the longer it stays away from the 800, the higher that this line will go. The line was the first way that I developed the Bosslator. But then I realized all I really wanted to know was a numerical reading. And so we put a numerical reading in the upper right-hand section of our charts. And we'll work on a method for you to put that reading in any location on your charts. Thanks to Tom for suggesting that we do that. Let's see if any questions came through. None. Excellent. Oh, wait, maybe. Phil says, I'd like to look at it on TradeStation, but the indicator download zip file seems not to be a zip. Phil, that is a very important question. If you could contact us on the Wednesday webinar, let's just talk about that right now. You're having trouble installing the Bosslator. Why? Come to the Wednesday webinar this week. Scott and I will be present, and we will answer questions in the Wednesday webinar about the installation of the Bosslator indicator on your MetaTrader charts and your TradeStation charts. If you're having problems making that installation work for you, then come to that webinar, and during the webinar we'll post a link to the indicator and we'll post instructions on that indicator as well. If there seems to be a problem with it, we can correct it at that time. So the Wednesday webinar will be especially for you if you've had a problem. We may even during that webinar ask you to share your screen with the rest of the folks in the webinar to show what's going on. We may even take keyboard and mouse control of your computer to make sure that we get you set up correctly. The next question, setting trades and walking away. What happens if you want to trade the Bosslator, but you need to get up and walk away, and you still need to be able to move your stop loss to break even? The only way that you can really do that right now is by using MetaTrader's Expert Advisor features and building a Trade Manager Expert Advisor to manage your trade. I don't have an Expert Advisor that currently does this. However, I do have access to one, and it's a great question. I will see if we can get my friend Keith involved in our webinars and in our forum. And we'll see if Keith can post a Trade Manager Expert Advisor that will allow you to walk away from the charts and have a setting that will automatically on MetaTrader move your stop loss to break even and then let you sort of, walk away. We could have that within the next, let's just say 10 days. That could be available within the next 10 days. What about if you use some other trading platform? Then you're out of luck and I don't have an answer for you. I'm sorry. You can't currently do anything about that. We are working on a trade manager for FXCM's TradeStation 2 that would require you to have a strategy trader account. Otherwise, We cannot help you unless your broker allows you to have an automatic move to break-even number. I don't know what the answer is for you in your instance, but a trade manager expert advisor should be the answer. All right, there are some additional questions. Yes, Phil, it will be Wednesday at 9 Pacific time. That's the only time that Scott was available to do that webinar. Have I found the Bosslator to be a system resource hog when applied to a lot of charts? Tom, are you speaking of the Bosslator right here? This Bosslator, the radar screen up here in the upper right-hand section of the chart? And what do you mean by a lot of charts? Setting up multiple templates with smaller number of charts on each on MT4. So I'm just waiting for Tom to let me know how many has slowed his charts down. What I have noticed, Tom, is that I can have a lot of charts open and it doesn't necessarily slow me down more than 6 or 7. No, I have not noticed that on my own. That's a really good question, Tom. I'm glad that you're mentioning it. I've had that many open with the Bosslator in the upper right-hand section of my chart here and have not experienced that problem. But let me know how many you're adding, and then we'll see what we can do about that. It may slow them down. I've had it on my charts for so long, Tom, that I might not notice that it slowed it down. That's a possibility. So it is possible that it is slowing down your charts. That is possible. MetaTrader indicators do tend to have some of those problems. Now, to answer your question about slowing down, we have built a light version of this indicator that removes the standard deviation, the average, and the number of bars on the highest time frame chart, and just leaves these two calculations right here. And we will make that available to you within the next 24 hours. And that light version, I suspect, will resolve the problem of slowing down your resources because it will be doing no additional calculations on other times. Tom, that's the version that we're developing that can be put in any corner of your chart. I think that would be helpful. Great. So everyone agrees that it's slowing down, and I think that we've solved that problem already. I think we anticipated that some of you would want to do that, and I think we're solving that problem. Let's add that to the Bosslator meeting agenda. It will just take one moment here for my computer. My computer's slowing down because I have a Bosslator agenda on my screen. Just kidding. Add Bosslator light version for people who do not want to slow MT4. Excellent. Excellent, excellent, excellent. What about alerts? A couple of items about alerts. We've made some excellent progress on a web-based version of the Bosslator radar screen that can be shown directly inside of the browser, directly inside the course and directly inside the website. I had a version ready for you to look at today, but I had to take it offline, and we'll show it to you tomorrow. I'll show you what it looks like. That version also includes the ability to set multiple alerts and be alerted on your phone or by email or otherwise to let you know when something has hit a certain Bosslator reading of X, Y, or Z. So we're on the way to completing exactly that request. Can't wait to make that available for you. All right, that's the basic questions section of today's webinar. Let's get on with some important questions that have come up about trading the Bosslator. These are really important questions. I want to make sure that no questions came in through the webinar software while we start this. All right, we're good to go. I've had some questions, lots of questions, and they're great questions. When to trade with the trend and when to trade against the trend. Let's start those two topics one by one and answer your questions. When are you supposed to trade with the trend? Question number 1, however, doesn't really answer that question specifically. It asks the question, are you a trend trader? If the answer to that is, I'm not sure, then you aren't really ready to trade both versions of the boss leader, against the trend and with it. I would prefer that every single person inside this course answer that question, are you a trend trader? If the answer to that is yes, you can proceed. The only way that you can find that out is by playing around with and experimenting with which version of the boss leader you would prefer to trade, trending or against trending. It's difficult to do both because you find that they begin to conflict with one another. I primarily use the boss leader now as a trend trader. Although it was originally developed as a counter-trend trading technique, I primarily use it and enjoy using it as a trend trader. That means that I almost completely ignore, for my own purposes, in my own trading, the counter-trend signals. Although I will post those in the forum, and I'm happy to talk about your counter-trend trades, you can know that for me, I like to be a trend trader using the boss leader. I'm very happy with how it looks and how it works. The next question is, what financial instruments do you want to watch? Pick a small number or a small universe of financial instruments that you are interested in watching on a particular time frame chart. Once you answer those first 2 questions, you now are focused enough to move to step 3, which is get the indicator set up on your charts. Then wait for a reading of 200 on the boss leader. Google Docs doesn't understand the word boss leader, so I've added it to the dictionary. Once you get a reading of 200 on the boss leader, what I want you to do is follow a system that you find here. Take one of these systems: the immediate entry, the moving average crossover, the stochastic trade, the Mesa trade, the Fibbles trade. One of those could work for you, or you could use your own method to trade with the boss leader. The Fibbles trade is probably my favorite trend trading method, and it's also probably the most complex method, the hardest to learn, that takes the most amount of time to become comfortable with. I've got 2 videos up here. One video is, I think, 17 or 18 minutes long. The second video is probably, 10 minutes long. And then a third video actually is probably 8 minutes long. And then I list out the complete checklist for working through the Fibbles trade. I like this version of the trend trade. It's my preferred method. It takes a little bit longer to learn and to become familiar with, but I like that method. So here's how this checklist would apply to me. Yes, I'm a trend trader. I want to focus on these 10 different currencies, X, Y, and Z. You can just pick 10 currencies from your MetaTrader market watch list. Get the indicator set up on my charts. Wait for a reading of 200 on the boss leader, and then follow a system that I find here. And I'm going to choose the Fibbles trade. And here's what I would do. If I want to be a Fibbles trader with the trend, and I want to do that on the 15-minute chart across 10 different currency pairs, I would wait for a reading of 200 on the boss leader. Well, as it might turn out, my euro-dollar chart right now on Sunday, September 4th, 2011 is at 199, or almost 200. So I could begin the process right now of setting up the Fibbles trade. And that would require me to draw a fib retracement from the highs that the pair made when it was recently at the 800 down to the lows that it made just this recent Friday, which looks just like this right here. And that gives me all the information that I need to start setting up this trade. And I could look for this currency pair on this time frame chart to rise back up into this zone, and this would be the sell zone. And then I could follow the rules that I have for the Fibbles trade. Wait for it to get to the 23 and go above and then come back down, or wait for it to get to the 38, go above and come back down below the 33. And that would be my system. This example right here actually looks almost exactly like the example that's posted inside the videos that you'll see on the forum. This example right here, it looks like the same thing over and over and over again. It's one thing that I really like a whole lot about the Fibbles trade. When it sets up looking the same way over and over and over again. Now that we've got a reading of 200, now that we're looking at a currency pair that I like, on a time frame that I've chosen to focus on, we're good to go. One of the major problems that traders have is that they don't make these two first decisions to start with. They haven't decided that they are a trend trader, and they don't know what financial instruments they want to watch and on what time frame they want to watch them. And so they're scatterbrained and they look at all kinds of different things all over the place. I would recommend that you either choose a time frame chart that is your focus, or you choose a set of currencies or financial instruments that are your focus. Get some kind of focus now and make a decision about that. For instance, you could say, I'll look at any currency pair and any stock on the 1 or 5 minute charts. And I'm a trend trader, and I like the Fibbles method. So 2.x would be what, well no, I already list that down on number 5. What system you're going to focus on. If you find the system you're going to focus on, and the time frame charts that you're going to focus on, and the financial instruments that you're going to focus on, you're doing like 99% of what's necessary here. Period. It's all about focus. You could also use your own method for trading with the trend. Now you'll see inside the lessons here that we have not completed the lesson 4.9 on using your own lessons, and we'll update those lessons this week. Once you get to that stage, all you need to do now is make sure you cut off your losses quickly, ride your profits for at least a 2-to-1 risk to reward to risk on your trade, and then post your trades in the forum. That is the complete process for being a trend trader with the Boss Later. And let me repeat it again. If you want to do both, counter trend trading and trend trading, you will find that you are a house divided against itself. You will find that it becomes difficult. Why? Because you are going to experience situations and occasions when the trend trades start to conflict with the counter trend trades. I would strongly recommend that you decide to be one or the other, and it does not matter which it is. Let's see what questions, comments, or jokes have appeared inside. Can you do both? I think I've answered that question. Could you watch all the time frames, or is there a preferred time frame to watch? Wow, what an excellent question. Watch all time frames. I would strongly recommend, Gawoog, that you pick short-term or long-term time frames, and then you stick with that. Jennifer, I've worked with traders that have tried to straddle both worlds, long-term and short-term, and it's really tough. You find that the short-term trading requires a certain bias for action, for doing a lot of stuff, and so you're clicking the button a lot. And when you start to look at those long time frame charts, you've got that trigger finger brought over from the short-term trading, and you really have a desire to jump in trades and jump out of trades quickly. And if you're a short-term trader used to taking 5, 10, or 2, or 3, or 4 pips, when you get to 20 pips on a long-term trade that's supposed to have a target of 150, you end up feeling like, oh my gosh, I got to take it. But you're supposed to be staying in. So that's what you think. Okay. I'm just kidding.
Well, I think it's advanced. I think it's hard to do, for sure.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
It's really easy to get yourself off track.
Right. So let me answer that question, Gawoog, and say I would be absolutely thrilled if you decided to be a trend or counter-trend trader on the short-term charts, 1 and 5 minute charts for a wide universe of financial instruments, and then your focus was on that short term. You would get a lot of experience, you would get a lot of trades, you would produce a significant number of trades, and you would get a lot of experience. And then, you could start to ask a lot of questions that I think would be worthwhile. And then you could move to maybe longer term trading when you don't want your schedule to be so overridden by watching the charts. Are there more trend trades than against it? Yes, that is a Manfred Breckenrecker asks the question, does the trend trade produce more trades? And the answer is yes. The trend trade will produce more trades. Why? because we can trade it earlier in the Boscillator reading. We can start trading at the number 200. And that is fantastical. That is such a great question.
That is a great question.
Thank you. I appreciate that question. It is true that it will produce more trades. Yes, when you trade with the trend, it will produce more trades. Let's see what other questions, comments, or jokes have been submitted. It was first said that Russ G. It was first said that we needed 1,000 for a reading for trend trading. Now you say it's 200. That is a great, great, great question. Russ, I'm going to answer that in a moment. And I'm going to answer Gawoog's question first. I prefer 15-minute and 1-hour charts for 20 to 30 pips. Are those two time frames conflicting? Bless you, Jennifer. Are those two time frames conflicting? No, Gawoog, those are good time frames. Thank you. That would be excellent. Russ G mentions that it was first mentioned that when to trade with the trend, we originally mentioned 1,000. We quickly backtracked on that, Russ G, because simply that did not produce the number of trades that was really optimal or even realistic. By starting out at 200, that's a much more realistic reading with the trend. And any conversation that you heard me have where I mentioned that the number was 1,000 is officially stricken from the record forever and deleted. And Russ, I'm sorry for any confusion. And to anyone else, I'm sorry for any confusion. The number really is 750 to 1,000 on counter trend trades. But on trend trades, the number is 200. Thank you, and I apologize for any confusion on that topic. Meng Fong asks, is it better to enter and exit in the same time frame? Could you get a signal on the 15-minute and enter it on the 1-minute chart? Yes, you could do that, Meng Fong. And those are more advanced lessons that we will be speaking about in the future. But you could do that on your own right now, and I would be very happy for you to do that. That would be fine. Kay Gardner says, would it be okay to trend trade for a month and then counter trade for a month to find out the personal preference? I think that's the greatest idea I ever heard in my whole life. Kim, that's a great idea. I can't wait to follow along in the forum to see those trades and give you some feedback. Gawoog says, if you're using the Fibs way, when is the trend formed? Gawoog, you need to watch those lessons. That question is answered inside of the lessons. So you need to watch those lessons and get up to speed on the answer to that question. Today's webinar really isn't meant to teach you the specifics of each method because those lessons are posted. I'm happy to answer that additional or questions that come after that. You've watched those lessons. It's okay, Gwoog. I'm happy to have you here and ask questions. And I can't wait for you to watch those lessons and then ask inside the forum. I don't mean to be mean or anything like that. Okay, let's answer because Kim's going to be trading against the trend 1 month, I would recommend that's the 2nd month, Kim, and that the trend trading comes in the 1st month. By the way, one last question about the trend trades. If you have read or watched the Fibbles trade lessons and followed that at all, please let me know right now inside the chat. I would love to know who you are and who I could collaborate with on some stuff. When to trade against the trend? First, the question is, are you a counter trend trader, and what financial instruments do you want to watch on which time frames? Just make a decision. There's nothing magical about that. Get the indicator set up on your charts. Wait for a reading of 750 on the Boscillator. Scott encouraged me to reduce that number to 750, although I was more comfortable with 1,000. I'm actually more comfortable with over 1,000, but Scott has had enormous success with certain types of entries on a reading of 750. Then follow a system that you find here inside of the forum, or use your own method for trading against the trend. Those lessons will be added during the week of September 4th. We'll just give you some pointers on how to discover some things for yourself. Remember to cut off your losses quickly and write out your profits and post your trades in the forum. We've already mentioned so much of these topics inside the section on trend trading that I don't really want to spend a huge amount of time on when to trade against the trend. But I do want to mention, you have to decide what it is that you want to focus on. There is an inherent conflict in trying to do both. And I would recommend that you focus. If you want to focus 1 week on trends and the next week on counter trend, that's okay. But I would strongly recommend that you go longer than that each. A month would be better because you can have some trends that finally hit during, a week and a half during a month. And that would be a lot of fun to trade. And if you go week to week, you might end up on the worst week for both. And I don't really think that that's a great idea. So taking a month for each would be a great idea. Now, there had been what I would term a very reasonable request for me to be more clear about how to trade the oscillator. And I think this has done it. Today's webinar has done that. You ask these questions 1 through 9, and I think you're going to be a focused individual that knows what you're supposed to do. And that's my answer to the wonderful people inside of our course that have asked me to be more clear about how you go about trading this and how you go about deciding between the trend and against the trend. Let's look at this. Is there a breakout method? What a fantastical question. Is there a breakout method? The breakout method is Trend Trade 4.4, the Mesa trade, support and resistance. The Mesa trade is a pure breakout momentum trading method. Guoog, I get the feeling you haven't been through the lessons. So I'm going to ask you, make sure you spend some time going through those lessons. The answer is yes, there is a breakout method. Mickey F really relates to the fibs. What a fantastic, Mickey. Welcome to my world. That sounds great. Bruno says, then is it possible to trend trade from 200 to 750 and then switch to counter trend after 750 without experiencing any conflicting setup? Bruno Pettit. Bruno Pettit. Okay, Bruno, I got an answer for you. It is possible to do that. But you will find that you'll start to say, oh, it's 700, I'm not going to take this one trade. And then you're going to miss a fantastic trend trade. They start to conflict with one another. Or you see a really great counter trend trade at 650. And you start to see if you think you should take that. And what happens is you can begin to be conflicted inside yourself on which one you're going to wait for. Jennifer, you know what it's like to say, oh, a perfect setup has come, but oh, this one other thing over here is starting to disagree with me. And what you'll find is the counter trend method will convince you not to take a trend trade, and you're going to miss it. And the trend trade method will convince you not to take a counter trend method, and you're going to miss it. And the answer is you can't avoid missing trades.
Right.
But it's better to at least not miss them because you're arguing with yourself. She's nodding her head. I answer your question. I ask you a question, but I set you up for the answer, so it's not really fair.
Yeah, you were leading me to agree with you, so I just went ahead and nodded.
Okay. For those of you that don't know Jennifer, she doesn't trade the oscillator, but she's a big fan of the concept behind it. I think what we've done today, I'm so glad for this meeting. I think what we've done is we have answered the question when you're supposed to trade one or the other, if you can do both, and how you would find out if you were better at one or the other. I've seen a really strong positive feedback on the fib concept. It's the most difficult one to learn. And it's the most difficult one to trade because there are some gray areas. It's less rule-based, for instance, and it does lead to some gray area conversation. If you are interested in this method, please stay in touch by contributing on the forum and posting trades. Always, 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 when you post a trade, make sure you include the method that you're using in the subject line of the trade from now on, so that I could quickly search for and find everyone who's posting information about Fibbles trades. A last note about risk and reward. I mentioned it in here, cutting off your losses quickly. I'll mention it again. I was recently scanning through traders that I've known for a long time and considering my own worst experiences as a trader. And I think that this simple declaration will apply to everyone joining us by recording or live. The very worst experiences that I've ever had as a trader have been when I refused to cut off my losses because I had had some experience that was positive in letting them run and the trades would come back. Every terrible experience that I ever had as a trader resulted from letting my losses run for a long time. If I could ask every single person here to make a solemn promise and declaration that they hereby and forever will never let a loss run again, and we set you up with some kind of expert advisor or trade management feature that would not allow you to ever keep a losing trade open for longer than a very small period of time or stop loss level, I could almost guarantee that you would survive long enough in trading to become successful at some point. I've told this story many times, but I never tire of it. When I was at Interbank FX for 3 months in 2008, and I was the chief market strategist, I had complete access to the trade histories and the trade. I could search through trades for thousands of traders, 35,000 traders making hundreds of thousands of trades per month. And I could run statistical calculations on who had been successful and what the characteristics of the successful traders were. Time and time again, I realized the same thing. Most traders, 90% of traders, lost their entire account balance within 90 days after having opened their account with an average of $3,000 to $5,000, and they generally lost their entire account on one single set of trades. Many of them would make a long series of profitable decisions in the market, followed by one giant bad decision that they hung on to for a very long period of time. The successful traders were traders who kept a stable account balance that almost did not grow at all for an extended period of time. In fact, successful traders seem to have been in the system for a long period of time, keeping their account balance at a relatively stable level. They were the traders who were most frustrated with their progress. They would complain or could be heard saying things like, I'm just keeping things at break even. I'm not making any progress. I don't really have a lot of time to trade because I have a full-time job. And whether it was because they had a full-time job and could not take a lot of trades, which was good, or because they simply did not take a lot of trades or just treaded water because they weren't making progress with their trading style, it was good. And what happened, because they were exposed to the market for an extended period of time looking at the same things in the same way, these people who survived in the market were the people who eventually succeeded. It's a very small group of people. Most people do not succeed. Most people blow up their account and go away and never come back. The people who survived long term were the people who succeeded long term. The survivability is more important than the profitability for your first 9 months as a trader. You don't really need to make any money. You could just tread water. And all I'm asking you to do is not blow up your account. Just survive. As frustrating as it is, and as difficult as it is to watch your account go sideways, do not become unhappy. The very best thing in the world that you can have as a trader is break-even, sideways performance in the market for an extended period of time, thus proving that you do not let anything terrible happen to your account. The most important thing that you can ever do is make a commitment to never let your loss run, ever. That is the most important thing you can ever do. There is nothing more important than that. There's no psychological trick or entry or exit mechanism trick. There is nothing more important than that. There is nothing that blew up an account in the history of trading Forex slowly. Nothing ever blew up an account slowly. Nothing ever whittled away at an account until it was zero. Nothing ever lost 1% per trade for 100 trades. Ever. It never happened. Ever. The only way people lose money or margin call and wash out of trading is by having a giant loss. Period. End of story. No comment, no disagreement, no argument. No one can ever show me any data to prove otherwise. Ever. It's incontrovertible. The only way, let me say it again, the only way people wash out of this business, the only way I've ever margin called, is quickly with one big loss. Ever. There's no difference. No one ever margin called their account 0.5% at a time. Ever. It never happened. If you reverse that logic, no one ever margin called if they cut their losses off quickly. No one ever did it. And the survivability that came from being able to stay in the market for an extended period of time gave people what they needed. If you need to make money quickly and your trade size is huge, you might as well stop now and save your money. Do not risk a substantial amount and grow your account slowly over time, and unbelievable great things will happen to you. Just cut the losses off quickly. Tom asks, as a trend trader, do you have a limit of oscillator bars where you feel comfortable? In other words, at 2,000 bars, do you fear for a reversal? What a great question, Tom. Yeah, Tom, at 1,000, 750 to 1,000, I'm going to stop. But remember, Tom, my losses are going to be so much smaller than my profit targets that I could take some losses and it wouldn't matter. Gawoog says, are the stocks the only indicator you use or would use? Gawoog, I'm getting the feeling that you haven't read any of the lessons. If you read the lessons in the course, you would know the answer to that question already. So I'm not even going to answer that question. Tom, I think I've given you an answer there. I think at 1,000, I would be most happy to stop trend trading one pair and move on to some other currency pair that's showing a 200 reading and start from scratch with that financial instrument that's fresh. Does that make sense, Tom? I hope it does. So we're looking at 200 to 1,000. Yeah, Tom, that's a really great clarification. Let's add that to the agenda. And Tom, if you were sitting next to me as a trader every day, you would find that I would give up probably even before 1,000 and move on to something else that's showing 200. Are there other questions that I can answer right now for you? Other questions from anybody around the world, from Malaysia, from Sydney, from Brisbane, from San Francisco, from Kansas, from Germany, from Deutschland, Manfred Breckenrecker. Anything else? I'm happy. This is why I'm here. Remember that. Kim says, I still have my account balance with a little plus 2 or 3% from over the last year. You exactly described my frustration or impatience. Great, Kim. Statistically, wait till I end the recording here. So hold on just a second. Thank you, everyone, for being here. If you're watching the recording, I appreciate you being here and look forward to talking with you this week during the watch list webinars and seeing you in the forum.